obviously, but like the story behind it is when I was growing up in D.C. at the time, it was the murder capital of America, and so we were losing a lot of people from gun violence in my neighborhood. And my mom, who I love to death, I grew up like a mama's boy, so it was five of us. But I was always up under my mom. My mom going to the store, I'm riding with her. She would read to me before I went to bed. She was a paramedic growing up, and she would come to my school on her lunch breaks just to give me hugs. Like she just was like a really good mom. And if you guys were with me and we like went out somewhere and I like saw a pair of shoes, something I like, she would buy everybody. Everyone got something. Like she was just like that type of mom. Um, but she started dating a police officer, and he was the crooked cop, Denzel Washington, Training Day type of cop, kind of like, had some charisma with him, but he was a bad person. And he started beating my mom. He was just like doing like terrible stuff. And one day he attacked both of us, and he knocked me unconscious with his gun. And when I woke up, he was raping my mom in front of me. And so my mom was injured from this, and she couldn't work after that. And from the injuries, just like we do today, they overprescribed her like opioids and stuff for the pain. And so she became addicted to it, and eventually spiraled downhill and started using heroin. And so around this time, my brother and my cousin was gunned down in front of that house. They shot my cousin 17 times. In his face, he passed away. They shot my brother 7 times. My brother survived. And then I was really young at the time, and so I started carrying a gun because in my neighborhood, you call the police, they wouldn't show up. So we were kind of on our own. And these people continued to stalk my family, and so one day they came after me, and I ended up taking a person's life. And I was 17, and I was charged as an adult and sentenced to life in prison. And so while in prison, right after I was sentenced, these people came to my brother was staying with my dad. They came to the house, they robbed the house, they tortured my brother, they killed my father, and made everybody watch. And his mom was there too, made her watch too. And so while away in prison, after like my second year, I fell into a deep depression. Because like my mustache had just grown in, I hadn't done anything with my life, and I was sentenced to grow old and die in prison. And so I knew in my heart that I was a good person, and that I had, I didn't really apply myself through school, but I knew that I was intelligent. Like I was on a chess team growing up when I was young. I played the cello. I could read really well. And so what I decided to do was lock myself into my cell and write up what I call my master plan, which is essentially like a bucket list. And it was things that I wanted to do in my life. And I knew that I was intelligent, but everyone gets this, I said I'll prove it by going to school. If they have school in here and they have like workshops, I'll show people just how intelligent I am. And then we had therapy programs too. So I said I also need to go get into therapy and figure out what led me to prison, like what led me to do like what I did. And how can I like keep this from happening again? And then the other things on the list was places that I want to travel to, people that I wanted to meet, dream cars that I wanted to buy, like having a nice house. But most importantly, I wanted to return back to impoverished communities like the ones that I grew up in and create opportunities that I didn't have. And so when I was young, older people, including like my uncles and stuff, in the house would say, you need to do something with your life, you need to get a job, you need to, cut some grass. But like no one ever came to me, my dad wasn't in my life, no one ever came to me and said, Chris, this is how you do it, here's an opportunity. Everyone just says, go get a job. But like finding a job is a job. And so I didn't know how to do these things. And so on my list, the plan was I wanted to start a business empire, I wanted to travel, but I wanted to be the person that created those opportunities or took a Sunday to sit with people and show them like how to do something or discover something within themselves. And so I wrote up this plan, and I identified like one or two people inside of prison that were super intelligent, that were studying and like read the bookworms. And I said, listen, I need you guys to like let's start tutoring each other. And so we had this interesting way of like learning that they would give me like math problems, they would time me, and if I got them wrong, I would have to drink water or do push-ups and stuff. And so I studied and went to therapy for 10 years straight. So I got my high school diploma in a couple of months. I did every vocational shop there was in prison. And then college came, so I earned my degree in sociology. I taught myself to read and write in Spanish and Italian and went on to study Mandarin. became a mentor, started a career center. I journaled every day, obviously, and part of like the master plan was to write a book one day that told my story. And so fast forward to 10 and a half years, I'm in prison and I'm mentoring some young gang members from MS-13. And so I remember walking the rec yard, and at this point, I'm like comfortable in prison, I'm studying, I got everything going on, but I can't get out. And I kept getting denied reconsideration for my sentence, because in the state of Maryland, when you get a life sentence, you usually grow old and you die there. So the young guy says, you know, I don't really understand, man, why you can't get a second chance. I see people get out, they come back, and you helped all these people, and yet you can't get out. And I was like, I don't know. He says, I never hear you talk about God, though. And he says, I'm not trying to push religion on you, but that maybe that's what's missing from your life. And he stepped off. Now, at the time, I believed in God. I just didn't understand God. And I was like, well, how could God allow my mom to be assaulted in front of me and she never hurt anyone? How can God allow people to judge me just based on the color of my skin? Or how did God allow all those stray bullets to take away like my friends growing up? And so what I did is I sat in my cell again and I would read my master plan that I written out, and I said, if you up there, I need some kind of sign. I've heard in my life people talk about signs from God and stuff. And I said, I need you to say something. Well, I had a plastic spoon. I said, I need you to bend this spoon, right? And so I didn't hear anything. The spoon didn't bend. I said, well, maybe you're busy, because this was like the war on terror and Bush was destroying the economy. So I figured God was busy trying to solve those things. And so, but I kept reading it. 2 weeks later, my lawyer comes to see me, and he says, I don't know what happened, but the judge changed her mind and she wants to see you. And I was like, really? And as you can imagine, this is like the biggest job interview of my life, right? And a few weeks later, I'm standing before the judge. The state's attorney tears into me and says, you know, he took a person's life. Life means life. He should grow old and he should stay in prison. And I remember turning to the state's attorney and telling her every year that I wrote to the courts about what I would do, I always exceeded my goals educationally and anti-therapy. I also talked about how it felt as a young man, a mama's boy, to grow up and watch my mom be violated in front of me by someone who's been supposed to protect us. And so I also expressed remorse for what I did, but I also talked about what I would do if given a second chance. And I remember the judge just staring at me for, it seemed like 5 minutes, and no family or anything showed up to my hearing, so I'm just standing there and she's just looking at me, and like my heart's beating. I can see it beating through my shirt. And she says, you know, your accomplishments in prison are nothing short of amazing. I feel like you are rehabilitated, and I'm gonna give you a second chance to get out. She says, but you can't be regular. You can't just get out and get a job and get a house and fly on the radar. You sent me this list, and you would write to me every year, and you have all these ambitious things on here. You got to do everything. And she was like, you better not disappoint me. And so fast forward, they reduced my sentence to life also suspended for 24 years. I did 16 and a half years. And when I came home, in my opinion, DC had been gentrified. And it was too expensive, and everyone was like, so what do you do? What's your thing? Why should I be talking to you? And I was like, I think I need to go to Baltimore. And so the cost of living was better, and there was more opportunities to do the work that I wanted to do. And so I came to Baltimore, and I went to University of Baltimore and tried to get enrolled. And I asked them to give me an opportunity to demonstrate myself as a student. Because of my background, like, it was some extra steps that I had to do to get accepted. And so I did really well in school. I got into business school. I pitched my first company. A few months later, after doing workforce development in the Berkeley neighborhood, so I was doing community organizing. But the sad thing about it is around this time, my mom had found out I was home, and she was like, oh my God, I can't believe that you home. Like, what happened? Did you break out? I thought you had life and everything. And at this point, my mom had lost everything. In her life, she just was spiraling downhill and strung out on drugs. And people had told me, they was like, the drugs messed her up. You wouldn't even recognize her, Chris. And so she called me. And when she called me, she was like, you sound so different. You sound like more mature. I need you to remember some things. I need you to remember how much I love you. And you need to finish your plan. And I was like, all right. And she's like, Chris, just remember this. And I was like, okay, Mom, you on speakerphone, you're embarrassing me, right? And when she hung the phone up, she wrote a letter and she committed suicide. So this obviously devastated me, and she never got a chance to see me as a free man. And so this painting is the funeral. And so this had happened. I just got out. People didn't even know I was home, and I was so afraid to see my mom deceased that I stayed in the back. And this is my other brother in front of me, who kind of took on the role as Mama's boys when I went off to prison. And so he became the Mama's boy, even having my mom's name tattooed on his neck. And so while in the back, I questioned God again. And what I was thinking about was, my mom did everything right. She got married, she graduated from Georgetown, she brought her first husband at 19. She was such a loving person. And what I questioned was like, how could God allow this to happen to her? And so in the background, this is the prison that I spent half of my life in. And right here, these are like, mostly all young black men. And I wanted to create this piece to kind of tell a story about how young men, when we're in a neighborhood, where we got to fend for ourselves, where the police don't show up, and we're carrying guns, and we just living a tough life. When we make a decision to take a person's life or to go off to prison, like we're leaving our moms or our dads like in the house. And so a big part of this painting was the guilt that I felt of like being away with a life sentence, and people would say, man, I just saw your mom, or I heard that your mom is like a prostitute, or like that she's locked up, or this happened. I was like, I couldn't believe it, that it was my mom. And it was like, if I was home, things would be different. But young people make decisions like this every day. And I guess like at the top of it, my mom was religious, but when she took her life, I imagined that, so these are the angels and these are like demons, and they're fighting over it. And so the demons are saying, well, she committed suicide, so we get to get her. And then the angels are confused because they're like, she was such a nice person, like she has to come with us. And so they're fighting over it. And so this is my DOC number. And so when I was in prison, I was no longer like Chris Wilson. I was just inmate 265975. And so that's who I was for half of my life. And the clothes, since I've been home about 6 years from prison. I started 2 companies, a furniture company, a construction company, both multi-million-dollar companies. I've personally helped, as of last month, 272 people in Baltimore City get jobs. Less than 10 of those jobs were minimum wage jobs. I'm 1 semester away from graduating with my 2nd college degree. I got an offer full ride for Hopkins Business School and Harvard Business School. I've won every award in the state of Maryland, including the presidential award from Obama. I got my book deal. My book goes to publication February 5th, New Putnam. And I'll share some other news too that I didn't make public yet. But I actually got a movie deal. And so the book is being turned into a film, and some really cool people that I never thought I would meet are like financing the film. And I've almost finished my master plan. I've traveled around the world. I've met like amazing people, and amazing people continue to support me. And I guess my mission going forward is to pay it forward and help the other Christians in the world. And so people might say your story is like crazy or whatever. Like I made it this far because a handful of people have surrounded me and says, we're going to support you like regardless. People will like scream at me, you need to write your emails this way, but they're doing it from like love. And I just have like powerful, loving people around me, which has allowed me to be the person I am today. So thanks for allowing me to